Welcome back to Forester Asks Questions. My name's Tom Coates. I'm a chartered forester, and today I'm on my way to the Northern Forestry Conference in Newcastle at the Discovery Museum just behind me. I'm hoping to maybe catch up at some point today with Paul Brannen, author of Timber, and I want to get his thoughts on the role that timber can play in tackling climate change. So if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks. So I'm here today with Paul Brannen, and we've been to the Northern Forestry Conference in Newcastle in the Discovery Museum. It's been a really good day. Lots of interesting, thought-provoking speakers and topics. And I thought I'd take this opportunity just to ask Paul a couple of questions, seeing as though he's one of the speakers. So I usually start off, Paul, by just asking, can you give a little bit of a background about yourself and your career so far, and how you got into sort of timber and forestry?
So I'm Paul Brannen. I work for both the European and the UK sort of wood industries and sawmill industry, and I have a job which is to sort of take advocacy messages to the UK government and to the European institutions, the Parliament and the Commission, that further the use of wood, particularly in construction, as one of the ways of decarbonising the built environment. And I'm doing that from a background first as having been a member of the European Parliament for the northeast of England, which includes Newcastle, where the conference is today. So it's my home city, but also before that working for Christian Aid in the development sector, where the last campaign I worked on was on climate change. So the kind of silver thread is climate change. So I'm interested in solutions to the climate change problem, and clearly, more nature-based materials, particularly more wood-based materials in the built environment, is one of the most effective ways of doing that.
And can you explain to the sort of layperson what is the sort of reason that timber is a real key solution to combating climate change?
So timber delivers two big wins. So when the trees grow in the forest, the carbon's being sequestrated, absorbed by the trees. And then when the tree is felled, if that timber goes into the built environment, two things happen. One is it will substitute for another product, which probably almost certainly has a higher carbon footprint. So if you were to build a structure with timber for a house, or a larger building with engineered timber, then you maybe replace concrete or steel or brick and block, and they undoubtedly will have higher carbon footprints. So the substitution effect of taking out a highly embodied carbon material and replacing it with a lower embodied carbon material is job number one. And then secondly, it will go on storing the carbon. So the carbon that was sequestrated when the tree was growing in the forest will remain stored in the timber product in the built environment. So more timber in construction means the substitution of carbon intensive materials, good thing, and also the storage of carbon long term, which is a good thing. They're the two big wins that we get from using more timber. It could be other nature-based materials such as hemp, but timber's the one I'm focused on.
So we need more timber, we need more timber producing forests. What are the challenges and barriers in your eyes to planting more timber producing forests?
Well, it's surprisingly difficult to plant a commercial forest, particularly in England, less so in Scotland. We've done very little major planting of commercial forestry in England in recent years. We have to do more. And good luck to those who are trying to do it. But what we are seeing, but would like to see more of, is support from, at a government level. So the government are supportive of more tree planting, particularly commercial tree planting, but we're not hitting the targets yet. That's the government's own targets. So we're doing okay on broadleaf, but that's great from a biodiversity point of view, and people going out to the countryside and somewhere to go for a walk, etc. But from a commercial timber point of view and wood fibre, for all of these different uses that the bioeconomy is opening up, not just in the built environment. I mean, loads of people are wanting wood for all sorts of different reasons, and that's across the globe. The demand for wood is going to go boom as we switch from oil and gas and coal, from a fossil fuel based economy across into a bioeconomy. And the bioeconomy is going to have to deliver material from the forest, the farm and the sea. It has to be done in a sustainable way. And at the heart of that, across Europe and across the world, will be commercial forestry. So here, I think we need to see more public support for planting, and a better understanding from the public as to why we need to plant. So the public understand that those little lambs in the field in the spring will end up being bigger sheep in the field in the summer, and then will end up being lamb chops. And people understand that process, and they don't oppose it as such. People need to understand that a little tree grows in the forest and becomes a big, beautiful tree, and then at some point it needs to be chopped down if it's commercial forestry. And that needs to have an understanding and a support. And when people think through of all of the multiple ways, in one day, timber products come across timber products. So they probably wake up in a bed, which has a timber frame quite often. They head across the bedroom floor in the morning, which is made from wooden beams. They go down a wooden staircase to sit at a wooden table on a wooden chair in a kitchen, where they get down their favourite cereal, which is in a packet made from cardboard, which has come from the forest. They've got tea bags in the teapot, which are in paper, which has come from the forest. They go out the front door in the morning, which is made of wood. They walk down the garden path with a wooden fence on the right-hand side, past the shed made of wood on the left-hand side. It just goes on and on. And we're surrounded. And one of the big increases is when more and more people are doing more and more online shopping. It comes in a cardboard box.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people, I understand. I do use wood products, and I'm using more wood products, and therefore de facto we need more commercial forestry. And if you get that public support, I think that those people who are opposing it at the moment, and there are people who oppose the expansion of commercial forestry, are less inclined to do so. And it takes away their argument, and it makes it easier for the politicians and the decision makers to say, yes, we'll have a big commercial forest in this area. And that's landscape change. People don't like change. But I think people need to recognize that the battle against climate change is going to mean significant landscape change. There has to be more wind turbines, there has to be more solar, there has to be more trees. This is part of the process, and the landscape will change.
So public perception has been a key thing in all the talks today. What do you think we can do to change that narrative? Is there anything else that, like one silver bullet or something like that we can do to really influence what people think about commercial forestry, about growing timber? And I guess on that, just sort of final thoughts on your reflections on the future of forestry in the UK.
Well, there isn't a silver bullet. We need to take the opportunities when they arise to make the case and say, rather than dodging a difficult conversation, to have that conversation, say, wait a minute, you need to think, can I challenge you on that, etc. And in a way, we're in a very similar position to the farming community. I mean, they've been through a process and continue to go through a process of having to explain to people where food comes from, why farming's important. We need to be doing the same. It was partly why I wrote the book, was to try and reach out and make that case to a wider audience, as the key role that timber can play in tackling climate change. But there's also these other significant benefits. We know increasingly we have evidence that timber buildings are healthier buildings. If your workplace is made of wood, it's a better workplace. Absenteeism rates go down, people enjoy being in the building. Schools made of wood, universities made of wood have higher education attainments. Hospitals made of wood have lower occupancy rates. These are big wins, and they have a financial benefit to society. If people stay in hospital for less time because the ward has been made from wood and is a beautiful environment, then that saves you and I, the taxpayer.
You just need to land that message, that's the problem.
And it's communicating these messages, so we need to learn ourselves to have the information to be able to say to other people, these are the benefits. And it's a kind of war of attrition, we just have to keep at it. And there probably will be a tipping point where we move from it being a minority of understanding to a majority of understanding. And I think we can do it because I think people recognize the importance of food in their lives. Our job is now to make them recognize the importance of timber and wood products in their lives. At a simple level, half of the products in IKEA have wood in them. You know, we are surrounded by wood, and it's just it doesn't. I mean, it does grow on trees, and people need to realise that, and therefore trees are important. And you know, the green NGOs, understandably and quite rightly, campaigned against deforestation in South America, etc. But there's been a bleed over, and people think, well, if it was wrong to chop down the trees in the Amazon, which often it is, it must be wrong to chop them down at Kielder, but it isn't, because it's a sustainable process.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your insights just now, and also thank you for your insights during the talk. It was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Perfect.
There's also the fact that most European countries, including the UK, do not harvest anywhere near their sustainable amount of wood each year. So the average figure is around about 60%. So there's in theory, on paper, there's a 40% across Europe more wood that we could be using. Now, not all of that is accessible. Italy particularly has, say, a low harvesting rate because a lot of their wood grows on very steep mountainsides, and it's just economically not viable to extract it. But many countries, including the UK, could harvest more at the moment. Then there's the issue of sustainable wood. Italy's led the way historically at the European level on being very good at recycling wood, but Germany, France, other countries are now catching up. And as we know, companies like Egger can use a high percentage, 40% recycled wood. So making better use of used wood is part of the answer. And from a technological point of view, X-raying and scanning logs to cut them in the most efficient way and maximising as much sawn timber as possible is part of what we need to do.